Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today's session, I'm going to talk about Terraform configuration language. Let me go to here. So the topic required at least 2 to 3 sessions because we need to cover it all the components inside this configuration languages like Terraform block, providers, resource, data source, variables, locals, output, modules. There is a lot of things are there. So let's discuss all those things in today's session, but maybe I'll cover it a few topics today and remaining topics I'm going to cover it later. So before that, let me go to that official documentation, Terraform, and just go to that configuration language. So if you're able to see it left side, there's a lot of things are there. So these all the things I'm going to cover it, like resource, variables, how to use it, okay, meta arguments and models, okay, output, locals, and backends, okay. So these are all the things I'm going to cover it in this, not this session, maybe two required 3 session. So before that, I'll try to close it out. And let's go to AWS console. Let's start our Terraform server. So now today, let's talk about one by one. So I'm going to explain the Terraform block. So what is inside the Terraform block? It is available. So let's connect it. Connect it from folder. Let's delete entire thing. Let's open the Visual Studio Code. Let's create the file in dot. So I'm going to add the code here. So let me explain it each uh, code what it is going to be do it. So before going to that, so which Terraform versions we need to allow it, which providers should be downloaded, and where to store the state file. So these are all the things we need to look into it. So now we'll talk about the required versions, right? Okay, so if you're able to see it, this is our required versions. Let me go to that here. Let me copy the versions. Okay, so what is this exactly the required version? Okay, this ensures the Terraform CLI version is compatible. So we need to see it our command line CLI what version is installed. That should be comfortable. If someone in your team runs on the Terraform 0.14, okay, then Terraform will throw you the error. Okay, so make sure that the version should be proper. In real DevOps team, everyone should use the same version to avoid the issues. Next, let me talk about the required providers. So what is this? Okay, so AWS means what is this? Okay, this is a local name, and here whatever you have mentioned that Ashikar slash hyphen, this is the official AWS provider, and 5.0 is going to be the all other version like a 5.5 to 6, 7. So the versions related to the AWS. Okay. So Terraform will automatically download the AWS provider plugin from the registry. Now let's talk about the provider block. So these are all things I already explained it, but this is specifically for the Terraform configuration languages. Under that, these are all things we should learn it earlier session started, but I'm going to explain it end of the session. Not a problem, but you can go through it. Now, so what is this provider block? So the provider block configuration, how Terraform connected to the AWS cloud platform. It can be AWS, it can be Azure, it can be Google Cloud. So here we are going to, in the Terraform, we are going to create the resource under the US East 1 region. Okay. For example, if you're using in your company, they can use it any region, right? So those things you should mention it. Now let's talk about the resource block. I think this is also I've already explained it. Resource block. So here the resource block is the most important part of the Terraform. And here you will get to know the understand. So AWS instance, okay, whatever it is showing here, right? So this is a EC2 instance, okay, and this is a local name. You can call it as a, okay. So here, whatever you are saying, this is a resource, okay, this is a provider's what resource you are going to create it and your local name, okay, and sorry, I think providers, yeah, this is a provider and this is a resource type, and this is a local name. So for example, if you want uh, any of the instance ID, okay, then you can able to use AWS underscore instance. This you need to catch up it, and web underscore local name you need to take it and dot. So this is output. This is going to be shows your ID. Now let's move on to practical. Okay. So let's go to here. So for example, now here it is showing uh, single provider, right? Okay. So before that, required providers, everything. So you got it right. So this provider block and this is for the block. Okay, let me minimize this one. So this is a state file, okay, or not required as of now, okay. So this is a provider's block, okay. Now I'm going to talk about the provider example, okay. Provider example also, let me show it you here. So this is the provider details for the AWS. Next, if you are using a multiple providers, okay, I wanted to create the resource on the multi-cloud environment. Okay, same data you can keep it. Okay, so here the resource you need to mention the source path you need to mention it. So if you're able to see it, AWS and Azure both they are mentioned it. Under that provider also they have given it both. So this is a multiple provider example. And the next one is provider with the version locking. Okay, so these are all the version locking. If you wanted to lock particularly one version, it should be allowed. Then this is a must and should. If you do not know, you can keep it uh, updated on. So Terraform will fail it if any other versions is installed. Okay, that is the main thing you should know it. And using the different provider configuration, that is also we can able to do it. How we can able to do it? Using the alias. So from here, we are using the AWS, right? Okay, I wanted to create it multiple region in the same, right? In the AWS only, I wanted to create a multiple regions. So this is how we can able to add the provider's details. So now, if you wanted to create the uh, resource in the Google Cloud, okay, how you wanted to do it? So you are going to use it same thing. There is no changes only provider's details it is going to be changed. These are all the example. So now let me talk about the resource black. Okay. So till now we talk about the everything, right? So now I'm going to syntax, right? So I've already explained the syntax also. Let me show it one more syntax here. Okay. So first one is it is showing provider type, a resource type, right? So AWS instance name, everything I've already mentioned it. Okay. So for resource block, I'm going to show it you the example. Okay. So here is an example for your resource block. So we call it as a resource block. So whatever you are able to see it AWS underscore instance. So this is a each instance resource type. And I told you earlier also web server, we call it as a local Terraform name. Okay. And AMI is a machine ID and instance type is a instance size, tax is a metadata. Okay. And same thing if one more example for resource block. If you are going to create a resource for S3 bucket, same thing. You are going to create the S3 bucket with the name of globally. So globally, the unique name should be there and tagging. And if you wanted to create a resource in the Azure cloud, so how we are going to do it? Same thing here, the resource. Okay. And so here it is showing the name of the resource and the local name RG. Okay. And what is the RG resource group name? We can mention it everything. And same thing for Google also. Same thing here. Can able to use it. Okay. For the instance creation, I'm talking about. So these are all the example for resource creation. So the format will be for any cloud. It is same thing. Okay. This is not going to be changed. Resource type, resource name, attribute. Okay. So you should not forget it. And basic syntax also, I told you, right? Okay. So now we'll move on to the Terraform data source, right? So for here, syntax, basic syntax for data resource. So we are going to use it data and the providers and the type and the name. We are going to mention the argument value. So this is a reference for you. Okay. Now I'm going to use it, how we can able to use it. For example, so now every time we are fetching uh, the image name manually, right? So I don't want it to take it from manually. Okay, you can able to use this data source black. Okay, so this is going to be shows your exactly the latest AMI of your Amazon Unix. Okay, now let's use it in the resource. How do we use it? Okay, so if you're able to see it, so right now I have not mentioned the AMI name. See if you're able to see it. What I have mentioned, data, AWS AMI, I'm going to use it listed Amazon Linux. The output is ID. Okay. Now let's go and try it. Okay, without adding the AMI, hard coding it in the resource block. Is it creating the resource or not? Terraform. So what it will happen in the backend Terraform, it is going to be query in the AWS cloud and get the latest Amazon Linux AMI that is going to be use it in the EC2 machine. So whatever we have mentioned, AMZ, AMNZ, the name values only it will go and it will fetch it out. But you should know how to get the latest images. Again, you need to go to that official page and you can see it. How do you get like a Ubuntu, Red Hat, Windows, anything you can get it. Then Terraform. So no need any hard coding, okay? And always use the latest image. Okay, tada. So once it is created, let's go to that AWS account. Let me see it. Is a resource is created or not? Okay, see, it is already initialized. And the next resource, I'm going to talk about VPC. So for example, you have a existing resource of your VPC. Okay. So then how do we use it? Suppose VPC already exists in your account. So we don't want to create it. How do we use the existing one? Right? Let's go to here and let me destroy it. Terraform. For example, what is the tags? It is there. Okay, there is no tag, right? So what I'm going to do, I'll just add the tag. Let's go to here. Did destroy it. Clear it. Let's clear entire thing. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to use data source again here. So I'm going to use it AWS underscore VPC, existing VPC for the local. I'm going to filter it as per the name and key value, or you can take it as a tags. So then under this, okay, under the existing VPC, I wanted to add the one of the subnet. Okay. So I'm going to use it AWS subnet, new subnet I'm mentioning. I'm going to VPC ID, I'm going to use it this value. Okay. So this is data, AWS underscore VPC, and local name we can able to use it. Okay. Now Terraform apply. So we can just see it. We'll go to, okay, what is it teaching? Creating EC2 operation. CPC error, APR invalid. Subnet range is invalid. Okay, let's use it. Let me see what is the range for this subnet. Okay, it is for 20. Okay, I think here 176 is. It is saying it is not valid. Yeah. So because it is already created a subnet, right? So the same subnet range we need to use it. Okay. So here it is already. So this is 172 series, right? We are trying to create it 10 series. Okay. So let's see that is it created or not. See 172 C. This is the one we have created. Okay. So this is how we can able to create the existing VPC. Now, if you wanted to create it on the existing, okay, in the Azure cloud, same thing, there is no changes here. Okay. So data, we need to fetch it from the existing. Then you need to use a storage account, okay, to create it anything. Okay. So this is all it is fetching from the Azure only. Okay. So I do not have any Azure account. So you can try it out. Okay. Now, so the next one is I'm going to get the current AWS account information. How do we get it? Okay. Let's see it. So if we need output, right? Use output command, Terraform. So what it is, it will returns AWS account ID and ARN and the ID. Let's see that we are getting what. See, we are getting the account ID. So same thing, one more example, if you have any existing uh, security group, that is also you can able to do it. Okay. So there is a multiple options available, but you go and try it out. So in the official documentation also, I mentioned all the examples. Data source is done it. Okay. So what is the difference between the resource versus data source? Let me talk about few details here. So this is going to be create the infrastructure, the resource, and read the existing infra. and managed by the Terraform. But here data source, so it is not going to be create the resource, read the existing infra. That is what data source it will do it. So in the real world scenario, how this works? So imagine you have a network team creating the VPC security, a team creating the security groups. So you need to deploy the EC2 instance. So you should use it for the VPC and security group, whatever they are given. Use the resource for the EC2. So that is a proper enterprise Terraform design. So tomorrow, I think let's talk about the tomorrow session variables. Okay. So till now, what we learned Terraform language using that, what are the providers, blocks, and I mean, the backend also I'm going to talk about later. Resource block, okay, providers, multiple cloud providers. Okay. So these are all the things we learned today's session. So remaining Terraform language components, I'm going to talk about variables, locals, output later also. So till that, you can previous watch my videos and let us know if you have any questions. See you guys.